they're not going to be afraid to make a move. Like, if they don't like what they saw this year, I'm not saying they're going to fire Sirianni at the end of the year, but I'm just telling you, like, if they don't like what they saw this year with a team that they put a lot of money, and invested a lot more into, he's not going to be on the longest leash either. I can guarantee you that.
No.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Barrett is off today. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. We have Jason Avant coming up at the top of the hour. What's the matter, Derek? I see that mischievous laugh, that smile on your face.
Did you notice that the more we talked to Sealski, the darker my shot here got?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
In a commercial break, our producer Xander, hey, D-Gun, what happened to your lighting? So I'm relegated to my wife's office again today because we have the 11-month-old granddaughter. So when she goes to sleep, before we had our pre-show meeting, which I missed, I had to put her to sleep upstairs. So obviously I can't do the show upstairs. So I came down here, and when the sun is, even when it's overcast, the natural lighting is perfect in here. Dude, all of a sudden it got dark. It's raining like cats and dogs here now. And it kept getting darker and darker. So I just turned on 3 different lights, and I'm thinking, I hope there's not a back glare off this glass. This is the one reason I didn't want to get the cabinet with glass, because I would argue with my wife, you're going to get a back glare. If you put a lighting in here, it's going to get back glare. She said, no, it won't. So luckily she has one on her desk and another lamp behind her desk, and I turned the overhead light on. So I guess she was correct. Oh, man, it pains me to say that. Oh.
It does, actually. The lighting looks good. I didn't know I didn't want to say anything as we have Mike on to distract from what we were, talking to with Mike, but I'm what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on there, man?
Dude, it just kept getting darker and darker. I'm watching clouds roll in. Now it's raining. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's raining like crazy here now.
I think I'm about to get it. It looks like we're about to get get crushed here. Yeah. So
that's amazing. I'm getting it in Delaware before you get it. Where you are.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But it's let me put it this way: it's dark and windy, which is a sign that it's about to come. We're about to get hit. So,
and my grills are now covered. I'm upset now.
I
can't do the show anymore.
You're done. You've just checked out at this point. Understandable. I'm done. All right. So I posed the question to you before we went to break, and I asked you. Right. It's a matter of trust. It's an old Billy Joel song. Only just a matter of trust. But who do you trust more? The head coach, Nick Sirianni, the defensive coordinator, Jonathon Gannon, who has, certainly been given a lot more weapons than what he had last year. And then, of course, the topic of every Eagles conversation, the guy who it seems to always get back to, and that's Jalen Hurts, the quarterback. So of those 3, who do you have the most trust in going into this season? I think I had a really tough time with this one, but I'm curious where you're at.
Who do you have the most trust in? Can I say none of the above?
You can.
I can say that.
Yeah.
I would say if you twist my arm, I would say right now it would be Sirianni. I would say even with the limitations he had last year, I thought for the most part he called a decent game. He just had to babysit a quarterback who was trying to find his way. I give him so much credit for looking at the film and realizing we need to go more to a running game to alleviate some of the burden off of our quarterback. I wanted the words Jonathon Gannon to roll off my tongue, and I'm giving, as many people are giving, Jonathon Gannon the benefit of the doubt that he didn't have the pieces to do some of the things that he might have wanted to do in 2021. So this year, as long as this team stays healthy, and that, how it goes in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Staying healthy is a huge factor. I'm saying wait and see with Jonathon Gannon, because we don't know exactly what he's going to do. Barrett has some great analysis on what he thinks Gannon will do with the personnel. I've given my take, you've given your take, but we don't know. Jalen Hurts, it's a gray area with Jalen. I don't know how much he improved in the offseason. How much can he improve? Is he a type of quarterback that no matter what he does, he is what he is, which is a middle-of-the-road starting quarterback in the National Football League? Or does he have the skill set that he can improve tremendously in a second year in Sirianni's offense and hold his own? It just blows me away that when you look at most people's comments on social media, they've already formed an opinion of Jalen Hurts. There's no wait and see. Everything you look at on social media is either or. Either he's going to flop or they believe that he's going to take his game to the next level. But most of the comments are more negative than positive when it comes to Jalen Hurts. I'm still in that gray area. I don't know what to expect from this kid. But to answer your question again, I would have to say right now, my biggest comfort zone is with Sirianni in terms of playing to the strength of his team, his offense, his personnel to be effective.
But it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not trying to speak for you, but it sounds like you don't have a high level of trust in any of the three. You're very much in wait and see mode. Would that be a fair assessment of where you're at?
Across the board. And that's why I prefaced it by saying, if you twisted my arm and made me give you an answer, I would say of the three, I would have to say Sirianni right now is the one I'm most comfortable with in terms of being the most effective and efficient.
Okay. Well, look, here's where I'm at, Derek. My answer, and we haven't discussed this, my answer is also Sirianni, and this is why.
Yeah.
At least from him, I saw a willingness to make a real philosophical change in the midst of a season, despite wanting to be a throwing team. Let's be real about this. He wants to throw, and the front office wants him to throw. Jeffrey Lurie believes that's how you win in the NFL. So does Howie Roseman. So don't kid yourself any other way. But he was willing to do what he had to do to win. And that should be the ultimate priority during the time.
Yes.
Number one on Sirianni. Number two, I also saw veteran players. I don't mean the young guys who have to buy in or guys who are barely on the roster who have to buy in. I mean Jason Kelsey type dudes buy into him when we were, mocking the plant analogy and a lot of the other stuff. There's some of the, where he just didn't come off maybe the best in a media setting, which I personally don't care about that much, but whatever. A lot of people were coming down on him. The vets really backed him. And to a man, we've had a lot of these guys on, Derek, BG, and a lot of these other guys who said, you know what, man, we believe in this guy. We like what this guy's doing for us. That told me a lot about him. That to me shows me that you can trend and continue to trend upward when you have those kind of traits as a coach. He was also willing to turn it over to Shane Steichen and not have such an ego to say, no way, man, I'm running this. I like all those things about him. Now, don't love. I need to see more. I need to see him. There were some things during the game that I didn't love. But to me, that goes with any rookie coach. We're going to have beef like that. So I saw a lot of things that I took away that were positive last year. Now he's got a lot more talent this year, and there's not going to be the built-in excuse that this team only won 4 games the year before. We were starting off at a pretty low bar for him.
Yes.
Now it's, hey, dude, you were in the playoffs. You won 9 games last year, and the front office gave you a lot better players. There's no excuses here. But I would say Sirianni, and the reason I would put him ahead of the other two, I'll start with Gannon. I think you know where I'm at with Gannon. I'm pretty optimistic about Gannon. I don't think he had enough last year. But I didn't see enough either to say, for sure it's Jonathon Gannon by any stretch. In fact, I didn't see anything. And I'm really very much giving him the benefit of the doubt that he did what he did last year because he didn't have enough people. Then you go to Hurts. You're exactly right about this. Whenever this comes up, you're going to get one side who loves him. The other side can't stand him, and he's a fraud. And you're right. It's probably more on the negative side than the positive side. But I honestly think my biggest concern with him isn't that he's going to be some awful quarterback. It's that he tops out at okay. He tops out at a guy who could probably get you to the playoffs, but not get you any further. And that's kind of what I worry about here. I think he's got enough going for him where he's not going to be some dude who falls backwards. He works too hard not to be better or the same that he was, but the same's not good enough. And you saw a quarterback last year when he went against really good defenses that didn't do much, just like a defense that when they went against really good quarterbacks didn't do much. So if the question is, who do I trust most right now as we sit here before the season started, it's Nick Sirianni. And it's not necessarily a huge knock at the other two, but I got more out of him last year than I got out of the other two.
See, I'm hoping that Jalen Hurts proves all the doubters wrong, including myself, because I'm not sold on him. I'm not negative on him, but I'm not just sold on him yet. And that's why I emphasize saying I'm in a gray area with Jalen Hurts. And I hope he proves all the doubters wrong for his sake and more importantly, for the sake of the organization. But we just don't know. We've seen a lot of mediocre quarterbacks have long careers in the National Football League, never won anything. Some of them were great managers of games, but just couldn't get their teams to the mountaintop. You know, and I hope Jalen Hurts does not fall in that category. But, you know, from what I've seen, and again, everything is based on what we've seen of him. I don't know where his game can go. I don't know how high he can take his game. You can work with the best of the best in terms of grooming players and looking at your flaws and getting you to correct certain things, but the mechanics just don't add up in terms of elevating your game to that next level. And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts can't do that. It's just I'm a wait and see with Jalen Hurts. With Sirianni, who pulls all the strings, he has his playbook. You know, that's what he sold the Eagles organization on, and they decided to hire him over other candidates as well. They loved his offensive philosophy. They loved what he brings to the table. You're exactly right. He wants to pass the ball, and I think that was the biggest seller for Jeffrey Lurie. When Lurie looked at his passing scheme and what he might be capable of doing if he had the right pieces in place. So now you have those pieces in place to elevate your passing game. But can the quarterback deliver the goods? I don't know at this point. And we won't know. We're going to sit here. I don't think we can give a fair assessment until we get, at least, like I said before, a couple of weeks on this show, until we get 4 to 6 games into the season, because you're going to see a variety of different teams are going to play. They're going to play what on paper looks like a weak sister in Detroit. But yet Detroit, as I've said time and time again, they have a lot of talent. Don't be fooled by Detroit. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to play some of the better teams. You're going to play some of the so-called automatic playoff contenders in a few weeks later. So until we get a nice variety of Jalen Hurts going up against these different teams, we cannot sit here and fairly assess what we're seeing until he's gone through at least 4 to 6 of those games.
I agree. Yeah. And look, you know, for the franchise, if Hurts can play, they can set themselves up for Derek for years and years to come. They have 2 first-rounders next year. They appear to have some pretty good young talent right now. I mean, you have a couple guys who you're going to filter out eventually: Fletcher Cox, Hargrave, maybe Brandon Graham, Kelsey, you know, Lane Johnson. But for the most part, you have a young receiving core. You have a lot of what appear to be good young offensive linemen who are and some guys who are ready to step up and jump in there. You know, linebackers are not old, although, you know, Slay's a little bit old. But for the most part, you're a pretty young team, and you're set up with really good picks. If you don't have to use one of those picks on a quarterback, and you can address some of these other areas, man, I mean, this is how you really start to build a sustainable team that's not going to have the ups and downs that the Eagles have had. I mean, if you think about it, yes, they made the playoffs coming off the Super Bowl, and they won a playoff game, and that was great. But it's been a lot of up and down really since then. And to their credit, they bounce back when they're down. They don't stay down for a long time. But you want to have that continued climb, or at least that stability where you're not up, down, up, down, up, down. And that's how you do it. Like if he can't play, and this ends up you're trading both of those first rounders for either an established player who's in the league now, or to try and move up or whatever. You know, who knows? Who knows how this thing continues to go forward? Because anybody you draft is a crapshoot. I don't care if he's the first overall pick. We've seen that. You don't know. So, yeah, I mean, as much as I think they've safeguarded themselves against Hurts if Hurts can't play, they're hoping against hope that he can.
The last thing this organization wants to do is have to use one of those first-round picks on another franchise-type quarterback. Because even if they throw him to the Wolves initially, you know, even if he went in next year and beat out Jalen Hurts and started right away, we all saw what happened to a Trevor Lawrence. Now, this team is much further along than a Jacksonville team. Jacksonville was devoid of talent across the board. This team has talent at all the strategic positions. But the problem is when you have a young, struggling quarterback who's trying to find his way, these veterans want to win right now. You know, some of these guys came to this team because they feel this team has a chance to win and go deep to the playoffs right now. But if you put a rookie quarterback in there next year, now you're taking 2 steps back to get 2 steps ahead, because he's got to go through the trials and tribulations of finding his way as a first-year player in the National Football League. And, of course, he's going to make his fair share of mistakes. By the time he develops, maybe hopefully year 2 instead of year 3, some of the veterans you brought in may not be here, you know. And then you got to go out and try to find other pieces to the equation to keep this thing afloat. So I know they're banking, and that's why they're all in on Jalen right now. They're banking on this kid turning the corner, second year in Nick Sirianni's offense, and holding the fort down, and hopefully this team as a whole can do a lot of damage in the upcoming season.
And they tried to provide him with the weapons, but they are also in I know every time they talk, Sirianni and Howie and Jeffrey Lurie, they back. Of course they do. They back Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
But their actions speak louder than words. And, moving out of that 1 first-round pick and essentially shifting it to next year and, just kind of waiting and seeing, they can say whatever they want. We all know what that is. We all know what that is. So I think that they're, as much as they have more access to OTAs, what he's looking like in workouts, all those things that we don't necessarily have, they too are very much up in the air. They are very much up in the air as to what he is, and they don't know either. And I think it was out of necessity because you needed some weapons, but B, the other thing that making these moves like AJ Brown do is they basically put it all in front of Jalen Hurts and say, listen, man, you got it. It's there now for you. Again, there's no excuses. It's not like it's just Devontae Smith out there. You have a lot of options now. And I think it's a great way to find out. You don't want there to be any gray area. You don't want any middle ground where you're not sure. We're still not sure what he is.
Right.
Because here's the thing, Derek. If he's mediocre, or let me take it a step further. If Jalen Hurts looks the way he looked last year, they will move on. They will move on if he looks like he looked last year. And he wasn't terrible last year, but they will move on. They have to see significant improvement because they are not patient with that position. They will make a change at quarterback. They will look to upgrade.
They thought they had the answer when they drafted Carson Wentz. They thought he would be the long-term solution, and unfortunately, it didn't play itself out that way. Do you think if the Eagles signed Brandon Graham beyond this year, Brandon Graham wants to come back and play with a rookie quarterback when he knows it could be a swan song in the National Football League? Do you think Hassan Reddick wants to wait another 2 years or 3 years when he came here because he felt this team can win now for a quarterback to develop, and he's 2 years older, and who's to say the Eagles would even want him here 2 to 3 years from now? Do you think some of these other players that are on this team, Darius Slay, want to sit there and wait for another 2 to 3 years to possibly get to the promised land with this organization? No. So that's why the Eagles are putting a lot of bank in Jalen Hurts, that this kid, now we already know he has the mental makeup and the maturity to succeed at this level. But it goes way further beyond just the mental makeup and maturity in terms of making it in the National Football League. There has to be a physical attribute that has the possibility of improving itself to give this team satisfaction that they made the right decision in terms of going all in on him. Because if not, the process is going to take a little bit longer than anybody wants it to get back to where you want to go. And that's a big if, because, quarterback is the most coveted position in the draft. And yet history has shown, look at some of the busts. Look at the big busts we've seen in the last 10 years in the National Football League from quarterbacks who've been drafted in the first round.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, Derek, like the Jalen Hurts as the hard worker mantra that's thrown out there, it kind of cuts both ways. Like in one sense, we've seen enough talented guys who are knuckleheads, and that cost them their career. Like if they would have had the work ethic that Hurts has, they would have been great, right? They could have been great. We could run through a million different examples. But the other side of the coin is, as awesome as that is, and he is truly a leader and a good dude and all that. Yeah. That's not enough. Like you also have to be able to play on top of it. No. So it's, some people will use it to make their argument on either side of this thing. And while I think that's critical to have, it's not the end all be all either way for him. It's really not. You've got to be able to have the talent too.
You can have success with a quarterback that can manage a game, but that quarterback that's managing that game has to minimize his mistakes. He can't put the team at a deficit time and time again. History has shown, and we just talked about it within the last couple of weeks, a whole list of quarterbacks who were managing type quarterbacks who found a decent measure of success in the NFL. So they can get by with that. I think they have all the pieces in other areas where those pieces can cover up for some of the deficiencies a quarterback might have. But if your quarterback's throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, if he's averaging a fumble and a half a game, that's not going to get it done, because now, especially when you play better teams, they're going to capitalize on that. I don't care how good you think you are, they're going to capitalize on that. That's putting undue stress on your team as a whole. And when you put in undue stress situations, you tend to make more mistakes than you normally would.
Yeah. And so lastly, just back to Sirianni on this, as far as trust goes. I like a lot of things that I saw last year, but the other thing is even though they went with Andy Reid forever, was it 14 years? I don't think that they're not going to be afraid to make a if they don't like what they saw this year. I'm not saying they're going to fire Sirianni at the end of the year, but I'm just telling you, if they don't like what they saw this year with a team that they put a lot of money, and invested a lot more into, he's not going to be on the longest leash either. I can guarantee you that.
No, that's not how the Eagles do it. I don't think we'll ever see another coach here 14, 15 years like an Andy Reid. Nope. It's a win or go home mentality right now. Now, Chip Kelly might have had some longevity if he didn't let his ego get the best of him. Doug Peterson was a perfect coach for this organization in the aftermath of Chip Kelly, but it got to a point where, Doug and the people upstairs just clashed on whatever reason. When Doug came in here, he was a perfect transition from Kelly in terms of, I'm just happy to be here. I'll do whatever the organization wants me to do. But once he won a Super Bowl and proved that he was a quality coach in the National Football League, he wanted to have more hands in the decision-making process, and some people upstairs weren't willing to give that up. And, of course, the two minds cannot meet, and they both have gone their separate ways. And I think Nick Sirianni falls into a Doug Peterson category. He's just happy to get his first start as a head coach in the National Football League, much younger than Doug was at this stage of his career. He's going to toe the line in terms of what the company wants. But if he starts having consistent measure of success, a couple of years, stringing a couple of years together, and I don't blame him, anybody in that position would, he's going to want to have more say-so in terms of how this team is built and what direction his team is going in, because his resume has shown that he can coach at this level, he can win at this level, and they're going to be headbutting situations with the organization, and either the organization or the coach is going to have to decide, do I want to be here that much longer? Do we want him here that much longer?
Well said. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, Jason Avant, former Eagles wide receiver. Can't wait to hear what he has to say regarding this team, the receiving core, Jalen Hurts, a lot of the things. We'll pose this question to him too, who we trust the most. We'll hit all of those things with Jason when we get back. Don't go anywhere. He's D Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network.